episode 10 of Locked and Loaded. We like to keep it locked and loaded with information for you guys. But most of all, it's mostly a discussion about half the time stuff we don't even know about. So we make sure we look it up while we're learning about it. As always, is my co host Javis. Javis, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Nice to
And I'm
see
hoping that
everybody.
this time we have much better audio.
Yes.
I apologize for Javis not having all the gear correct. No, I'm just playing. That's all on me. Um, no, so that's me fine. Okay, yeah. I actually like how it sounds. I'm good.
All right.
All right, so James, what are we talking about today?
Oh my God, you are not going to like this topic, and I don't even care. I am
Okay.
so excited right now. I have been waiting for years for this, and it popped up out of nowhere. One of my YouTubers that I follow online was just like, "Hey, has anybody seen this movie? I want to talk about it." And I was like, I was waiting for this movie. I didn't know it was already out. So then I run to my streaming platform, and I had to get a trial run of BET Plus in order to watch this movie. But yeah, I think they have it on Amazon as well. I think they said Amazon or yeah, Amazon Prime should have it also. But anyway, so anybody that knows anything about black entertainment and black news knows the story about what's going on or what has gone on with the comedian Monique and Oprah Winfrey, Lee Daniels, Tyler Perry. Anybody that's anybody that's anybody knows about the story about them falling out with each other. Well, mostly them falling out with Monique and her being blackballed from the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last year all of that changed. Um, Lee Daniels met Monique on stage at one of her concerts, apologized for everything. They made up, they made amends, and they've been working together ever since. And we haven't seen anything that they've been working on. It's supposed to be a series of projects, I heard. Well, the first one has come out. Now, mind you, it's not grade A content all around. I'm a little biased because I love Monique, but it's not the number one movie or the number one thing, but it's for right out of the box after being out of the limelight for years, it's pretty dang good. The movie is called The Reading. I think it's Lee Daniels' first horror movie. And it's starring Monique and a cast of random no names. And I shouldn't say that. That's so disrespectful. They all have names, and but we just don't know them because they're new to the entertainment industry. And so if you look up the reading, I'm sure Joe can find their names or whatever. The movie is, in my opinion, phenomenal. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of people online that really love this movie. It did get some backlash, it did get some hatred because Monique carried the whole doggone thing. So it's just like at the end of the day, the only good scenes were the ones that she was in. When she wasn't on the screen, you were just kind of like watching your watch. You're just like, okay, when is Monique coming back? Blah blah blah. But that's because she literally had nothing to. I hate saying that she had nothing to go off of. Like literally, these actors are new to the scene, so they weren't really giving her anything. But she's walking around this entire movie monologuing, and just the monologue she's giving is worth you watching this movie. I was in tears laughing. I talked to other people that were just like, yo, like this was actually really funny and scary at the same time. Monique is physically running in this movie. Like you see her in a way you've never seen her before.
Running.
And huh?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What did you say?
You said we see her in a way we never seen her before, and I said running.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
And like, so it's just I don't know. I enjoyed it. It's the second I saw it, I was like, it's the one thing I want to talk about. He's also going to be doing a show. She's also finally made up with Netflix, so she has gonna have a special on Netflix this April. Things are going really well for her, so I'm really
That's
proud of
good,
her.
baby.
Really proud of her. Really happy about her future and career because you have to realize that this is an Oscar-winning actress that fell off the map, just went nowhere, and so all of
I
that.
don't want to say that she fell because that's not. For me, there's several things. I believe a lot of what Monique was saying about the fact that she didn't want to play the game, and I understand not wanting to play the game, and I can't fault her for that. If you so choose not to, then you so choose not to. And what they wanted her to do, I didn't agree with either because they're asking her to do all these press packets to go to these places and locations. Um, but what I didn't realize was that they weren't paying her.
No.
And so it's like, you want me to do this press thing, but that's coming out of my wallet. And my thing was, they should pay for it, period, in the story. And I also thought that when you're going to all these different places to do your press packets, they're paying you to do those
That's
things.
what I thought.
So to find out that that's not the case and what was going on, that became an issue. But the thing with Oprah was also messed up as well when she brought her, I think it was her mom and her sister on the show and didn't tell her that.
Yeah.
That's also a problem. I would definitely agree you shouldn't do something like that without making sure someone's comfortable, especially with the subject matter. I can understand it's like they brought him on. It's like, surprise, it's your birthday. And I'm like, cool, that's something different. But it's like, hey, talk about your family issues. That's a different thing. They need to be warmed. It's not the Maury Povich show.
Yeah.
Um, so with those things, I totally agree with. But I don't agree how she handled a lot of things, which made all these issues and problems develop even more. There are ways of going about it in front of the camera. There are ways of going about it behind the camera. And I don't think she took the best approach, and I think that was the bigger issue. You had an issue. We totally agree. We're all down with the fact that you should not have had to have done that without getting some form of payment. But at the same time, I don't think that movie was a high budget movie. Precious. I don't think it was. It wasn't like it wasn't getting okay Avengers budget. It wasn't even getting half of it or a quarter of Avengers budget. It was a low budget film, like during maybe like Friday or something like that. So when it comes to talking about movies like that, I think you probably would have to end up paying for your own way to promote the movie. But I think at that point it should have been a choice. It should have been, hey, you can choose to pay for yourself to go promote this movie, or you don't. But keep in mind, the money you make will be based off the fact of how many people end up seeing it because you went out to promote the movie. So a good example is what we're doing right now. We have our own YouTube channel. Are we talking about it to anyone? Are we doing press things about it? If we were to do it, it will be coming out of our own pocket to make it happen until it becomes something so big to where it makes its own money. So I think it's the same thing with the movie that she was doing. It just so happened the movie was so great that it won what it won, and it was kind of funny that we're talking about it today when today's the Oscars. And
Oh
it
wow.
won what it won, but no one didn't know it was going to do that at the time, and you got to plan for that. And I think the thing is, if you work that hard and you just put so much love and care into a movie like that, and it works out in your favor, and you get that, you get all that money back and then some. So after the fact, she wasn't hurting, and then that should have been the time that the conversation should have been happening. Of, yeah, they did all this, and that could have been kept behind closed doors because you got the Oscar now. So like everybody wants you. Your whole budget now. Like in order for you to do a movie, they're paying you millions of dollars just to look at it. So that's the difference that happens. So you made that change, but it that didn't change in her in the sense of, okay, let me sit down with these people and say, okay, now we need to work this out. Because once you reach that level, I always use the artist Pink as my example for anything. Pink's first album is extremely different from any other album Pink has ever done, because Pink's first album is what they told her to sing. Pink's albums after that is what she wanted to sing, and you can hear the difference in her voice of what she's doing. She could do all those songs, but when she talks about it, she was like, they're trying to get me to sound like Britney Spears. I'm not Britney Spears. I'm my own person. and this is what I want to do. But she had to actually do those songs to get to the Pink that we know and love and want to hear her music from. That's always, and I think that's with a ton of artists, with a ton of actors, with anybody in the industry. You've got to play the game at the beginning to play your own game in the end. But if you don't play in the beginning, you don't win. And she's the perfect example of that. Monique is. And I'm seeing this movie, but if she had done it their way, and this is probably where we could probably end up differing or something. If she had done it her way, I will be watching the reading in a movie theater. But now I'm watching it on BET Plus. And I have to ask myself that question. What? And then the actors that are in this movie that you're telling me about that are unknown actors, they have names, of course. We want to respect that and done that. Would it be the same actors, or would it be someone different? And
No.
so all those things play into that factor um, of what you can create. Because most people will sit there and do the movies they don't want to do at first, make a name for themselves, and then start doing the movies they want to do, or even take that next step and say, I want my own studio, and build their own studio, and now they're producing their own movies. Like Adam Sandler does. Adam Sandler's like, hey, y'all want to go on vacation? All right, it's going to cost us 80 grand to go on vacation. Let me do a movie. He does a movie that pays for it. So he's not even using his own money. That paid for it. It's just like things like that where people get smart with their money. And I think with her, that might have been the case. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And I've always seen people on YouTube and stuff speculate on what they think is. And here I am doing the same thing, saying that's not something that I would want to do. But it is something to think about um, because I feel like she would have a way more money and I think a lot more love from a lot more people because when she went out into the open and said a lot of things, it was very hurtful. Even the thing that happened between her and DL Hughley, it's just like it was bad. And I'm like, that's whether you can tell your story, but if you tell your story in such a way where I think at one point she was saying something to one of his children, game's over. You've lost. It doesn't even matter anymore because you went that route. You don't do the kids at all. Even if there was a writer on SNL that said something about Trump's kids, like that's you draw a line there. There's a line. You want to talk about this person or that person, whatever, do that. But when you start talking about the children, that's a big no-no. And I think that's what a lot of what her and her comedy and the things she did, I think she had to kind of go back into herself and then come back. Was she right from day one from what she was saying? 100%. I totally believe that. But there are ways of being right and going about it the right way, and there are ways of being right and going about it the wrong way and having to take this route. This is a movie that I'm sitting there looking at right now. I was hoping to be able to download a picture and put it on the screen so people can see it. The reading is filmed by Courtney Glaudy because there's a
Yeah, I
hyphen
couldn't
on the E.
pronounce
Um,
that name.
and I was looking at some of the trailer of it as we're talking about it, and I'm asking myself, is this something that I want to jump up and see? And this looks like a movie I would be watching, like if I wasn't feeling good and I'm sitting at home, the lights are on, I'm in the basement, and I just like, okay, let me put something on while I'm just resting my body because I'm sick, and that speaks volumes. There's movies that are designed for me, in my opinion, for when you're feeling good, when you're feeling bad, when you're feeling emotional, when you're feeling strong, when you're suffering through depression, when you're having a great moment. There's a movie that helps you through all of that. And I feel like this will be one of those movies. And I'm very curious to know if she had a just gone about it a different way, where would it be? But at the same time, I never want anyone, especially a minority community, to ever lose what they had and not be able to get it back. And I want great things for her because one of my favorite shows to this day, I still haven't even finished the series, is The Parkers. Um, I went back and started watching The Parkers all over again, and I'm laughing my behind off because the comedy between those two, the duo of doing it, and then the fact of her having a crush on the professor and how that was done. It's never been done in that way before. And they bring a whole new thing to the college experience and what people are experiencing. And it speaks volumes to our community of what it is. And I'm like, that's their show. And she put a lot of love and a lot of heart. You can hear her in it more than you hear the show in it. And you see shows like that, Living Single, and shows like that that actually bring a person really truly into it. And I'm like, to this day, it's one of my favorite shows. And I'm like, if that's the quality that she has and she can make that, then she's designed already to make it on her own. She's already proven that. So if someone's saying, hey, go do this press thing, and she's saying, no, I don't have the money, okay, you don't. And when you do have the money, that's when you have a conversation about it. Hey, I know there's struggling artists out there. I didn't have the money to go for my press things. So communicate with me, communicate with Oprah, communicate with all these people, and we're gonna find a different way to do this. As opposed to, I'm not doing it. I'm going on a talk show and talking crap about y'all because y'all don't respect. And like there's ways of going about it. And I'm like, if she had to gone the other way and just like she would have built something. Now that's actually a career path for people to say, hey, okay, these artists who have to do these press things can actually take out what they now call such and such loan, Monique's loan, and now they're able to go to these things without having to lose their money. But when their movie gets popular and they get the money back, they pay Monique back plus a little bit more. Now she has a business with it. So it's like little things like that to help you grow and build whatever you're trying to do. There's always a way of going about it. And for me, I didn't like how she went about it, but I'm still wishing her the best success, the best everything. And I pray that she heals the relationships with all the people, whether she was right, whether she was wrong. I want healing either way, regardless. So I'm honestly happy that this is something completely different from Marvel, DC, any of that, and conversations. And when I told you we were going to change the show to just Locked and Loaded, you
Yeah.
went full force with it about picking what we're going to talk about, because I thought it was going to be some anime, something along those lines, and you went deep on something, and it's not even Black History Month anymore, but it is Women's Month, so it's just like that's a perfect
Hey.
time. You picked this topic, didn't even know Women's Month. On top of that, Oscars tonight.
Yes.
So you kind of did a double blast right there, which is really really awesome to see her do this. I Because of you, I will try and find a way to see this movie as soon as possible. Then maybe we can talk about it and then go from there. And wish her much success on that. But
And
thank you, Davis.
and I mostly chose it because I knew you were gonna have that opinion or those opinions on it, and I knew you were gonna have a lot to say, specifically on Monique, but also on everything that has happened. And so I I uh I know I thought it was a great topic to use because of the fact that she is getting to a point where it feels like she is coming back. I my only because I do feel because whenever I remember when everything first happened, and I had to tell myself what box am I in, because it really did it really did look bad. It really did look bad for her because she just comes out of the box and she's saying all this stuff, and you're just like, yo, like, these aren't just unknown people you're talking about. These are people that have opened schools. These are people that
Hmm.
have paid tuitions. These are people they have, for every person that loves Monique, there's 8 that loves one of those people. You know,
Yeah.
so it was just the people she was talking about. These were not little people, and that's another thing that she always talks about. But um, the only reason I changed my opinion on the matter is because of the fact that it feels different to me when you look at the timeline of it. When you look at the timeline of when the movie came out, when they went to, I'm not sure if it was the Cannes or Sundance that they were trying to get her to go to, but
Hmm.
whatever it was, if you look at the timeline of her winning the Oscar, and then all of a sudden she's on stage, she's bad mouthing them, and if you look at the timeline of what happened, I was just like, yo, like, Monique never had any intention of speaking on this. And I remember seeing her first interview um, about the situation, and it was literally because they were going around saying things that weren't true. And literally, it gotten to a point where they were just like, oh, Monique, they were saying Monique was difficult. They were saying she was this, she was that. And I can understand how people feel like she handled the situation in the incorrect way. But at what point do you reach a boiling point where you're just like, I'm not going to let these people speak whatever they want about me? And I feel like she got to that point, and we may feel like she handled it in the wrong way, but I also have always believed the statement from Kill Bill. Kill Bill had a great statement, and when she gets to the end of the road and she's talking to Bill, and she's just like, why did you do all this, why did you make all of this happen for no reason? And he was just like, I overreacted. And she was like, what? You killed people. What are you talking about? You overreacted. And he said, if I was a thief, I would have stole from you. You pissed off a murderer. What else was I going to do? They pissed off a comedian, a high profile one at that. What else was she going to do but speak her truth on a stage? And I feel like even though we or other people may feel like it was the wrong move to make, think about who you are and what you do, and then look at who other people are. When you get them to their breaking point, when you push them up against a wall, um, what is someone in that situation going to do? They're going to go back to their basics. And that's Monique's basics. That's how she got to where she is, by doing just that. And
Hmm.
I that's the only reason why my mind changed on the whole situation, is because Monique has never been anything but Monique. Um and and we when you go back to the facts of the matter, the conversation always starts with, well, she was right, but, and there's always a but of how she reacted, but no one's paying attention to the first line, which is, she was right. They tortured her in the public for years, but she was right. They forced millions of dollars out of her pocket, but she was right. And so, I mean,
But it's the part that we don't hear because,
yeah,
like I said, the horrible truth is people think more about negative things than they do about positive. If I say, Javis, you're handsome, Javis, you're handsome, Javis, you're handsome, you're like, oh yeah, thanks. But if a stranger walks up to you and says, oh my God, you're freaking ugly, that's what stays with you longer. It's just
yes,
I can't figure out how we can stop that in our minds, but that's what
yeah,
we think about. My theory with Monique is I love your analogy and I don't want to tear that up. So I'm going to
no,
stick with the fact that I love that analogy. My question has always been the behind the closed doors when a phone call was made and said, Monique, we need you to sit there and cover the press at such and such event to promote this movie and talk about this movie, get it up and running, like do the thing that you do, Monique, the comedy, bring it so that way people want to jump up and go see this movie. And she's like, I can't, I don't have the money. And then they're like, what do you mean? I think there was something in there, and I can't see someone like the director and other people not putting money together to get her out there. And I think the other thing that was a conversation was she didn't want to be away from her family. I think her family was either dealing with something or whatever, and she couldn't leave. But the harsh truth of it all is when you're in that line of work, your family has to come to accept that, and know that, because that's what you do. She was trying to do something that was normal. Everybody had to do it. It's not like, ooh, we're just gonna make her do it. Everybody did. So even the director, who may not have had money because he's hoping to God that this movie is gonna help set him off, even the other actors, actresses in this movie were doing the same thing, and some of them didn't have the money that she even had, and they were doing it. It becomes that part of it as well. Were you right? Yes. But what was that conversation in that room to get people to make a conscious decision to tear you apart on TV? What did you say? And if you're going with the analogy that you use, she probably cursed them out in such a way that they were like, okay, because there's two things in there that I want to make sure. That's the one that I just said. The other thing is I cannot stand when someone says a female is difficult to work with.
Yeah.
When I hear that, if I was at a high level where I could hire people, I would hire that person in spite,
Yeah.
because that means that person knows, in my opinion, a ton of knowledge of how things are supposed to work, and they know what's good and they know what's bad, and they never get that credit of standing firm on what the best thing is to make something look the best it can. Because that word, I hate that word. Like, someone's difficult to work with. Why? I want them to continue that sentence. Don't just say that person's difficult to work with. Tell me why. Because I always go back to the Fresh Prince of Bel Air and the mom not being there
Yes.
anymore. And
Yes.
the storyline of, if you want to replace Aunt Viv, okay, but the replacement was, this woman was a lawyer. She was a high end lawyer. I mean, a professor, a high end professor who did all these things and stood up for the community in such an incredible way for African Americans. That was her character, and it seemed like when they took her away, they took that part away too, because you didn't see that anymore. She was teaching a class at one point. She was doing a dance class at another point. She was doing all these things. I remember she went to get her son out of that community, and because he was trying to act all hard, Carlton was acting all hard, and so she went there, and it was a MacArthur Park. That's where they were going, or whatever like that.
Yeah.
And so she went to go get him. And big dude Debo from Friday was like, "Well, I don't think you should be doing all that." She said, "Boy, don't test me." Like, only she could pull that off.
Yeah.
The other person that played Aunt Viv wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
It didn't have it in there.
Yeah.
You heard her say that, and you knew that she could take him out before he could take her out. And he was like, "Yes, ma'am," and he backed off. We lost all of that because someone decided to say that she was difficult. But then you look at her life and what she was going through. She was pregnant. She was dealing with an abusive relationship. She was about to lose her home. There were all these things that were going on. And instead of people coming in and saying, "Hey, what's wrong? How can we help?" They took her out and said, "I don't want to deal with her anymore." That's the immaturity. And I know Will Smith apologized for that. And I know they've moved on and stuff. But that still happened. And it still messed up her career. And I think she would do amazing in a ton of movies. Can you imagine her playing Storm in X-Men?
Can you imagine her playing half of the role that she should have been playing over these years?
Her and Angela Bassett doing a movie together?
It just
Can,
kills me, Joe.
it's just like,
that shit
we
kills
lost
me.
something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's the same scenario with Monique as well. Monique has such an amazing style.
Mm-hmm.
But what was that phone conversation that got to the point where people were literally dogging her out to where she had to come out and say something? But the problem was, they said it first.
Yes.
And because they said it first,
Mm-hmm.
it became a he said, she said. And the people that were saying it were more respected
Yes.
than she was. And
Yeah.
that also says something.
Mhm.
If I have a problem with Oprah, it don't matter. It's
Exactly.
Oprah. If I have a problem with Beyonce, it don't matter. It's Beyonce.
Mhm.
It takes a lot to take someone like them down. And so you have to play the game very carefully. And there's a comedy thing that I watch. I think I watch it like every couple of months because it pops up in my feed, whether it's on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. And it's a guy who's a professional driver instructor about proper ways to drive. So he's on the show as a guest. You got the host and the co-host. The host is is a guy. The other host is the female, and they're inviting him on the show to talk about driving and making sure you're good. And so they're asking him, like, what made you get into this business? And he's like, "Oh, it's actually a funny story. When I was driving one day, this guy cut me off, and then he stuck his middle finger at me and was just like so rude and mean." He said, "But I recognized him from TV. And I said to myself, I'm going to learn how to be the best driver instructor so one day I can be on his show. And when he's not looking, I can replace his regular muffins that I see him eat every day on the show with a different kind of muffin." How's that muffin?
Oh
Do you taste it?
my
How is
god.
it? They're like, we're gonna go to a commercial break. Thank you. I think it's like, thank you, Michael, for coming. It's like, my name's not even Michael, and then it just cuts off, and I lose it. I'm like, there are ways of going about it. You have to find the right strategy that works for you to get certain things done. And I am of the mindset you can be right and cause yourself to be wrong. And I think she was 100% right, but she caused herself to be wrong. You can only do things once and then you move forward in your life because we can't go back in time. I don't know what those conversations were that were behind closed doors, but I also know that if I was in her shoes and I was down to my last dollar and I had to promote that and I truly believed in that, you best believe I would get on a fan page, even though those didn't exist at the time. I would get on whatever I could and say, hey, I need help. I want to promote this movie. I don't have the money to do so. Can y'all help me? I would get the community together. I would go to a church. I would do everything I could to make sure that I'm there. And if my family is going through something at the same time, I know I have a better chance of taking care of my family if I have a lot more money. So I was still figuring out how to do it. That's what I feel. But I was not in her shoes. I do not know what her mindset was. I don't know anything that was going on or happening in that situation. I'm just saying, from my perspective, she was extremely right. But from everything that I saw, it made her look wrong. And that's the biggest issue you'll ever have in this industry. And I know the industry is constantly changing now and being more mindful of and being much more respectful. They could have just, it could have been something like, hey, B, you get your A here right now, or we're going to F and blah, blah, blah. That could have been the conversation, which is why I want to know what that conversation was.
Yeah.
Because I feel that was the game changer in that situation. That conversation happened, and her response in a closed environment set the foundation of everything that happened. And I don't say that it was her, it was him, her, everybody else involved set that foundation. Because there's no way that Oprah calls you up and says, you need to go and do this show, and she wouldn't give you the money to do it. It's just, it's pennies to her.
Yeah,
No
well,
big
that's the
deal at
other thing
all.
that I don't understand because if that is the case, then Oprah is 100 million% wrong for that because according to the conversation that was talked about, she said, "Hey, don't, they said, hey, they said we would only go if it was paid for. They were just like, our contract is up, and the contract was up. Everything that they asked her to do in the contract, she
Hmm.
completed it all. And
Hmm.
so then they were just like, "Oh, go do this." And so she's just like, "I would only go if it was paid for, if you got a hotel, if you flew me out there. I do anything that you want me to do if you guys pay for the." And they said, "Oh, we don't pay for promotion." And according to Monique, that's when she said, "Oh, I don't work for free." And that's, I think that's what the issue was in it, of them feeling like they were paying her like on payroll, and her feeling like, hey, I'm not asking you to pay me, I'm just asking you to pay for the trip. And so I think there was a miscommunication in that, and personally. And I feel the same way about with the DL situation because I feel, from the
Another
jump.
contract.
Yes, I was just like, that's a promoter issue.
Yes.
In my opinion, I was just like, the promoter promised both of them the same thing and then made them fight it out for it.
But see, that's where I got to stop you there because the promoter made the mistake, but Monique didn't take it to the promoter.
Yeah, and that's my other issue is the fact
And
that
I think it's
she,
the same thing might have happened in this scenario as well. She
yeah,
was like, I don't work for, I don't even think it was the director and then that called. It was the regular person like me and you that calls and says, hey, Monique, we got blah, blah, blah coming. We would love to have you come out and do that. And like, oh, well, they're going to pay. Well, we don't pay for any of that. It's like, oh, I don't work for free. And then you go back to your boss, the director, and say, well when is she going to be able to fly out? Like, she said she doesn't work for free. She's not doing it. And so it could have been someone like me that says that.
A bunch of third party people.
Third party going back and forth, and like, oh, she said what?
Yeah.
And like, it cannot even have been like that. She could have been like, oh, baby, like I can't do that unless someone's paying something. You know, baby, I don't work for free. Like a little joke like that that meant absolutely nothing, but then gets turned into something else. And I'm like, that's the conversation. Because half the time you see these people fighting each other, they don't even realize that they hadn't even communicated with one another yet. No conversation whatsoever. And all this happens through this whole entire time. And I'm like, pick up a phone, go see somebody, and talk it out. And then when you start the conversation, make it as simple as, hey, I don't know what you specifically said, and I don't think you know what I specifically said, because we've had other people speaking for us. So let's restart the conversation from the beginning and see where we land. Because we may just need to be, we may need to just fire some interns.
Yeah.
And nothing more.
Yep.
Let's just start it there and figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Jay, it is past our time. I don't know how it feels like nothing. It feels like, are we going to be able to fill a show in a half an hour? And then you're like, oh my gosh, now we have to officially stop. So, once again, Javis, you brought something to the table that I didn't even think we were going to be bringing to the table. Again, I thought we were going to be talking about Attack on Titans, because I'm on season 3. And season 2, you said was slow, but I think it's season 3 that's a slow one. But I love it because there's so much information that I'm getting. But at the same time, I'm falling asleep, so I got to figure out how to make sure that I'm doing it properly. But
second half is what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think I will, because like half the season the dude's not even in it. So I want to thank you for once again being on the show. We're gonna get another episode to you as soon as possible, people. Always stay tuned, and you guys have suggestions, just bring them in. So always keep it locked and loaded. Working on the intro for our show, so hopefully we'll have some things soon. That way we have a beginning and an out, and then we will be good to go. But until then, y'all stay blessed, and we'll talk to you soon.